Okay, what are the values of x for which the function f defined by the quantity negative x squared plus 8 times e to the x is decreasing? So I look at this and we first notice that we have the function f defined. We know that f of x is equal to negative x squared plus 8 e to the x. And I also notice that I'm looking for where this is decreasing. And decreasing means that my derivative must be less than 0, so that it's sloping downward. So I have the function, I know what I'm looking for, let's take the first derivative. Before I do that though, so I want to find the first derivative, I want to find f prime of x. Before I do that, I need to notice that this will be a product of two functions. I have this function right here. Let's call that the function u. I have this function here. Let's call it the function v. And that means, using product rule, that I'm going to have v multiplied by the derivative of u with respect to x plus u times the derivative of v with respect to x. Product rule. Okay, and going from there, let me make sure I give myself enough room. That derivative will be, v is just e to the x. The derivative of u, the derivative of negative x squared plus 8 is negative 2x plus 0. I'll just put the negative 2x here. Plus, I bring in all of u here, so I have negative x squared plus 8. And dv, v is e to the x, the derivative of e to the x is e to the x, so I have times e to the x. And now I'm going to try to get this somewhat simplified. I'm going to sort of factor out e to the x or combine like terms, however you want to think of it. But this is actually going to be equal to, if I take the e's out to the front, I'll be left with e to the x multiplied to negative x squared minus 2x plus 8. Now I have a few options here. I can look at this parabola, factor it down, try to sketch the graph, use that for zeros like I've done previously. But in this case, I'm just going to factor. There's something worth noting though. E to the x is always a positive value. Any positive number to a power, a real power, will be positive. So this itself isn't going to really change whether I'm increasing or decreasing. I'll leave it in there to be sort of thorough with things, but it's not necessary for positive or negative because it's always positive. So my derivative equals, I'm going to take a negative out, factor a negative out. I don't like factoring with a negative leading coefficient, so I have a negative e to the x. What's left in there is x squared plus 2x minus 8. Next thing, I look at this x squared plus 2x minus 8, and I see that that factors very nicely, very easily, so I still have this negative e to the x, but this factors as x plus 4 and x minus 2. And this means that f prime of x equals 0 when x is equal to a negative 4 or a positive 2. The zero product property, x plus 4 equals 0 or x minus 2 equals 0. This first term is always negative now because I have this negative e to the x, so it's never going to equal 0 there. And what I can do from this now is I can use these to help me figure out the sign of f prime. And I've done sort of a sketch of the graph. Let me do a sine chart here. So we have two zeros. We have a 0 at -4, and we have a 0 at +2. And we have three factors here. We have a negative e to the x, we have an x plus 4, and we have an x minus 2. And negative e to the x, as we already stated, will always be negative, no matter what input we put in for this, no matter what x value we use, negative e to the x will be negative. X plus 4, we look, if we're left of 4, -5 is one example of it, -5 plus 4 is -1, it'll be negative over here. -5 minus 2 will be -7, that will be negative here as well. Now between the -4 and the 2, this is going to change signs. If you're not sure on that, you can see zeros in here. Let's put in 0. 0 plus 4 is +4. However, this has not changed signs yet. 0 minus 2 is still -2. And to the right over here, let's just say 3 is to the right over here. I can see that 3 plus 4 is +7, so that's going to be a positive value. 3 minus 2 is +1, that's still positive. And so, we can see that over here, to the far left, to the left of -4, a negative times a negative times a negative will be a negative number. But between -4 and 2, a negative times a negative is going to be a positive number. And if I look to the far right, to the right of +2, a negative times a positive will be a negative number. And that means that f prime is less than 0 on this interval where we are less than -4, on this interval from -infinity to -4. And f prime is less than 0 also over here from 2 on up to +infinity in this case. So my answer here is when x is less than -4 or x is greater than 2. Answer choice A.